Let's first of all start with the news about 7-Up. As we noted on top stories there, the company reported its full-year results today. Turnover was up 18%, PAT up about 23%. What did you make of those numbers?
And they were good numbers. They were in line with what the market expected them to do anyway, because their main rivals, NBC, had similarly pretty good results as well in their third quarter. So they were in line with what the market expected them to do.
Okay, and then what interested me though is that the dividend yield at 3.6% we didn't see any investor reaction to that, considering the fact that money market rates are quite low right now. What did you think? Did that surprise you?
Not really. The investor confidence is very low in the market at the moment, so it would take something really stellar to actually excite investors, and unfortunately, those results didn't.
Well, coming back to 7-Up, what do you think they're doing right? Because we've seen some other manufacturer results come under pressure recently, but we've seen fairly consistent growth from 7-Up over the years.
7-Up management is quite conservative in their outlook, and what they normally do, what they've been doing over the years, is consistently providing decent results by having a strategic plan going forward. They've updated their manufacturing, their distribution network, and you've seen the progress of that coming out in their results. And they're also introducing new products into the market.
Right, and of course, I think they're stealing some market share from NBC, which obviously runs the Coca-Cola franchise. Okay, let's come to some news headlines coming out of Nigeria today. We saw the SEC announcing plans to bring in some new rules. I think just to run through a few of them, they are looking to introduce ETFs in Nigeria now, Islamic funds. They have put some provisions on how dividends should be treated to improve transparency, and I think lastly, which very importantly as well, they're now allowing collective investment schemes like mutual funds to begin to invest in unlisted securities. Overall, what's your take on those proposed changes?
I think it's good. Anything that deepens the market is good at this point in time. I think it's in line with the SEC trying to broaden the product base of the products in the market. The key issue here is that for the products like the ETFs and the Islamic funds, for them to be listed, they're going to be out of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So until reforms on the Nigerian Stock Exchange are concluded, you're really not going to see anything there. But I think it's good in the sense that it will broaden their revenue streams available to the likes of the Stock Exchange.
And then let's zero in on the collective investment schemes and the fact that they can now invest in unlisted securities. I think, for instance, the Same Value Fund, which opened last week, there is a provision for them to, as the SEC approves, invest in unlisted securities. And I think being a private equity player, Capital Alliance will want to invest in private equity. How do you see that transforming the, should I say, mutual fund industry in Nigeria?
It depends on how heavily it's regulated. There was an issue about 2 or 3 years ago in the Nigerian market about private placements. There were a lot of private placements which shouldn't have been allowed to happen, that happened in the market, and a lot of investors got burnt. Now, the process here, what the SEC is trying to say is that let's regulate this unlisted, let's allow the firms, instead of having a blanket ban on investing in unlisted securities, let's allow some regulations around it, and it depends on how tightly they regulate it. I think it's a good thing if it's regulated properly by the SEC. But in line with most of these new products and new reforms the SEC is bringing in, and together with the stock exchange, is really how well are they going to be regulated.
Right.
Because you can have all the rules you want in the world, but are you going to enforce them?
And I think for me, it also raises the issue of capacity in the SEC, because do they have the people that understand this thing? Because if we take a step back and look at what happened in the US, I mean, the products that got investors into so much trouble at the time, I think are so complex that even the regulators may have had some challenges understanding those products. So don't you think there's an issue with the SEC's capacity right now?
I think there's an issue with the SEC capacity. ETFs and Islamic funds, they're quite fairly basic products, to be honest. But in terms of capacity, I think what you don't want is a situation where the market is far ahead of the regulators, which was happening in the last 5 years. The market and market innovation was too far ahead for the regulators, and they just couldn't keep up. So you want a situation where the regulators are in line with the market and they actually understand the products that come into the market.
And as we wind down, let's look at the report coming out of the Dangote Group, obviously owned by Aliko Dangote. There's news that they want to consolidate the cement-related businesses into one entity, and of course list that entity. There is a report in the news today that entity could be worth about 2.1 trillion naira, which is about a third of the current market capitalization. What are your thoughts on that development?
Firstly, I think it's a good development to have a company the size of Dangote bring all that cement companies into one and listed on the stock exchange. I think that's an example. I would hope the other telecoms and oil and gas companies that are not listed that invest in Nigeria will do the same. I think secondly, I think it's the valuation of 2 trillion, 2.1 trillion, I think it's quite wild, to be honest. It would definitely get a big boost to the market capitalization of the stock exchange. Exactly how big that boost will be, we don't know. But in terms of engendering investor interest in the market and increasing confidence, it will be a good step.